Man, we'll be here for days. A few people told me that I've lived many lives in a short period of time. I mean, I'm up in age, I feel like it, but I've done a lot of things, and one of them just happened to be a drug dealer, tennis player, ex-con, now activist, and who knows what the future may hold for me. I leave my future wide open. I'm a film producer, a documentary producer, book. I wrote a book. I know now that I can do anything. I can use this mind of mine to accomplish whatever goals that there is that I want to accomplish.
So I know when we were at Venture Prep today, we were sharing with the young people the real Rick Ross, because people are kind of identifying Rick Ross with this rapper.
It's a contradictory, because what happens is Universal and Warner Brothers and these big companies are promoting this guy as a guy who sold drugs and was able to parlay his drug dealing into a great record career. And I believe it's a bad message to really be pumping to the kids. To tell these kids to go out here and sell dope, and you're gonna be successful. You're gonna be like Jay-Z. You can get to kick it with the president and never go to prison. I think that's a false message to tell them, because all my friends that became successful, if they didn't get killed, they wound up going to prison. And I believe that if you're gonna tell the kids that selling drugs is a way out, then you gotta explain to them that there's prison time to go along with that.
How'd you get involved with selling drugs, and just talk about the trajectory, because you're identified as perhaps one of the most well-known, or you've done quite a bit in that world. Let's talk about that world for just a moment.
Well, if you Google drug dealers of all time, I think I come up like 4th or 5th on the all-time list, and it's guys on that list that I can't even believe that they would have me on the list with those guys. But I'm definitely high rank when it comes down to drug dealers. I started off with one of my, what I call big homie, somebody I looked up to, who I thought knew what he was doing, introduced me to it for the first time. The first time I ever heard about it came from the movie Superfly. When I watched the movie Superfly, for the first time in my life, I saw a black man that I could identify with. He stood up to the man. He told the man that you ain't gonna do nothing to me. I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm black, and I'm gonna do what I want to do. So I really identified with that character, and I believe that in my mind, that character stayed in my mind. And when my friend gave me the opportunity to accomplish the goal that I had saw on the movie Superfly, then I jumped at the bait.
And so what did you learn along the way?
Oh, wow. I learned so much along the way. I sold drugs for 8.5 years, and I did it not like most people do it. Most people are what I call casual drug sellers, but I was a career drug seller. I believe that selling drugs was my way out of the ghetto, was my claim to fame. I think one time I even told a guy at the LA Times, he did a story on me, that I thought that I was put on earth by God to sell drugs. I thought that was my trade, that was my calling. So I did it. I would sell drugs 18, 20 hours a day. Sometimes stay on the block, 2 days and don't even go home and change clothes, just stay on the block working. So I did it wholeheartedly. I put my soul into it. I was willing to die to sell drugs. Going to prison was just, that's just a casualty of the game. I can deal with that. But not only that, but I was willing to die or kill, in order for me to stay in that game. When I stood on the street and sold drugs, I had a guy standing on the side with a pistol, what I call watching my back. And his job was, if anybody come there to do something to me, your job is to shoot him. So when I didn't understand all this when I was out selling drugs, but when I was in prison and I'm in solitary confinement, nobody in the cell but me, no TV, no radio, no books. I had to get to know myself, and I just started going back over my life, and then all these things that started to come up. I made a right turn when I should have went left, and that's the beautiful part about being a human, is that we're able to make decisions.
You talked about literally going into a process of learning how to read.
Yeah, I couldn't read at all.
Talk a little bit about what encouraged you to begin not only learning how to read, but where that literacy led you to.
What I found out about myself is that I was embarrassed that I couldn't read. So I had to overcome the embarrassment in order to get what I needed. It came a time that my lawyer had, in so many words, told me that I should be counting on myself, that I should be putting all my energy forward toward getting me out of prison. I was in prison, I was looking at life sentence without the possibility of parole. So if things went the way the courts and the prosecutor had planned, I would never be home again. So I started to study. And the first thing I did was I got my ABCs, and I learned I taught myself how to sound out a A, how to sound out a B, and I had cue cards. And I would stand in line while I'm going to chow, and I would go with my cue cards, A, B, ba. And all of the things that I found out, nobody had never taught me as a kid. Nobody had never taught me how to sound out my letters. And without being able to sound out your letters, you can't read, because if you know A and you're thinking A to sound A, you're not gonna get it. So I had to go all over the process to learn how to sound the words out. I went from there to reading the newspaper, and I went from reading the newspaper to straight to the law books.
What would you say to someone who's going the way that turn that you went, where you could have went a different direction?
I would tell them, it's not so bad that you made a wrong turn. It gets bad when you keep going the same direction. If you find out that you're going the wrong way, you got to turn around, even though you have to go back and make up tracks. That's okay. It's better to make up tracks than to stay in a stage of infancy where you still illiterate, you still dumb, and you can't deal with life. So I would say that for you, no matter where you at, you can turn around and start to turn your life around, and maybe even catch up to where you're supposed to be. But it all starts with you making up your mind that you're willing to change directions.
The Reagan years, the Contra scenario, and how that connection between the inner city and international drug trafficking, converged. We find ourselves on an international playing field.
What I found out going to trial is that the guy that I was getting my drugs from had been fighting a war in his country. And this war had been going on between the Sandinistas and the Contras. I knew absolutely nothing about them at the time. But once I got whiff of it and I started to learn, I started to do my research to find out what was the Contras, what was the Sandinistas. And what I found out is that the Reagan administration had made the Contras their pet peeve. And when these guys got kicked out of Nicaragua by Ortega, they came over to the U.S. Congress got mad at the Contras because they had been doing crimes. They had been doing crimes to innocent people, women, raping women and kids and stuff like that. So what Congress said is, okay, we're not gonna give you guys no more money. Your money's cut off. So when that happened, the Reagan and the Bush administration had to find ways to raising this money. So what they did is they started selling guns to Iran. When they sold the guns to Iran, they took that money and sent it over to buy drugs for the Contras. The Contras would get the drugs, bring the drugs back over here to the U.S., sell the drugs, buy guns with the drugs, and then send guns back wherever they was getting them from. I'm not sure of that. At first, it was a question of, did the CIA play a part? Did they sanction this whole idea? Well, there was an investigation that came out, and the CIA admitted that they did know that these guys were selling drugs, but they didn't sanction it.
So when you hear the term war on drugs, what comes to mind?
War on the black man. I mean, we got 600,000 young black men in prison right now today. There's probably been 15 or 20 million that's been through the court system, parole, probation, and whatnot. And it's really crazy that they would say that this is a war on drug when in actuality, I believe it's a war on the young black men, Because if we know that our government pretty much bypass the law and allow drugs to come in here, then how can you turn around and prosecute the people who get involved with it?